My name is Shalish Shukla from Cisco Systems. And as we set out the overall IoT track agenda, we thought it would be great to begin the day giving you a perspective of the broader landscape of IoT, or as some people call it, IoE, Internet of Things, Internet of Everything. So as part of that, we have selected and invited a very, very high-profile industry analyst who understands the entire set of use cases, all the technologies, and the business implications. And that gentleman is Patrick Moorhead. It's great to have you here, Patrick. Just a quick intro. Patrick is president and principal analyst at Moor Insights and Strategy, which is a boutique analyst firm that he founded in 2011. By the way, he is the most cited analyst for IoT and all things technology as rated by Apollo Research. So we have, and also someone who very frequently appears on CNBC and on a bunch of TV stations. So he's a certified, TV personality, everywhere in Wall Street Journal, Computer World, and so on. Patrick is all over. His firm provides advisory services, analysis, and consulting on Internet of Things, cloud services, scale-out data centers, and clients like phones, tablets, and PCs. So please join me in welcoming Patrick.
Wow, I need to take the world's most socially awkward technology off my face right now. It truly is amazing what mankind has brought us. So we've done a little bit of a deep dive with a couple of the presentations, but I've been asked to give an IoT overview, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So the first thing is what is IoT? I pulled some definitions from some of the larger companies out there that talk about what it is. And, is it Google Glass? Yes. Is it Samsung Gear Fit? Sure. But it's also the industrial Internet of Things as well. It's all of these things. Now, the challenge, though, is when we talk about IoT as an industry, we don't have a common language. And just like the Tower of Babel, we need a common language, otherwise we're going to be talking across each other. So what we did is myself and my cohorts in my company, we looked all around for a segmentation that would help our IoT clients better understand this. We didn't find one, so we ended up creating one. And what we did is we really started off with a clean sheet of paper. I know, very impressive. There is more, I promise. What we said was that the two biggest ways to create a segmentation model is by differences in needs and differences in input methods of the user interface. First, there are needs to thrive, which are much better than just surviving, obviously, as we all learned in Maslow's hierarchy. It's about optimization, about money, about time. It's really a first world type of thing. But there's also surviving. It's about baseline living and the protection from injury, making sure that you can eat, making sure that you don't get cold. And then on the input, again, the user input line, there's two different kinds. There's autonomous, think of it like machine type of input. Rules can be changed, but human-driven changes are really external to the system. And then there's interactive systems, more human systems, where people are actually putting explicit actions forward and expect to get a response back. And when you add that up, we really came out with 4 IoT endpoints. The first one is, again, based on a thriving needs-driven, which is experiential. The second, which is kind of baseline, it's about survival, it's existence. We have the human Internet of Things. Again, very interactive, reactive. And finally, the industrial Internet of Things, which is very autonomous. And as we took these endpoints, we found 4 action segments that came out of it. And the first in the upper right-hand corner, and this is enabling discretionary wants and needs, this is the combination of a experiential, a thriving need, but with a human interactivity. On the lower right-hand corner, it's about enhancing those fundamental needs, making those baseline air, water, everything you have to have to survive, but making it a little bit better. In the lower left-hand corner, really we get in this industrial section, which is about enforcing patterns that are continuous. They go over and over and over. You do not want a mistake on your GE electric engine. There's just no room for error there. In the upper left-hand corner is more experiential, thinking about doing something with that amazing amount of data that you get, finding methods in the patterns, finding clues in the patterns of that data that's coming out. And what that does, that really drives out 4 distinct product areas. And again, upper right-hand corner, it's about smart toys, it's about jewelry, it's about Google Glass, it's about home automation, at least in the short term, until it becomes embedded into your absolute life. And in the lower right-hand corner, it's about smart appliances, it's about refrigerators, clean clothes, clean air, warmth, and cool. In the lower left-hand corner, where you absolutely has to be right every single time, the patterns don't change, otherwise something happens. Robotics, security systems, professional medical systems, this stuff just can't go wrong. In the upper left-hand corner, we have a little bit of leeway. Let's say in terms of the security, it's about tracking the fleet, tracking the electric in your smart meters. So we came up with was 4 IoT segments based upon the vectors and variables that I talked about before. It's attainment. You know, the guy with the upper right-hand corner with sensors and data coming all over. It's the lower right-hand corner. It's about life. It's about things that can't break. The lower left-hand corner, it's operational Internet of Things. And in the upper right-hand corner, it's all about monitoring. So who cares about segmentation? What does that help you do? Well, it helps you find patterns so you can make the right investments. You can be looking at the right things to do in your strategy. Neat things like this. When you cut the data between a thrive versus survival needs, what you find is that the way to differentiate is different. So when it comes to thriving, what differentiates it is truly the services. I mean, look at them. Whether it's, you can have a Fitbit, but if you don't have a service that goes with it, it doesn't matter. And over time, all these exercise wearables are pretty much going to look the same if they don't do already. They pretty much do the same thing. So what differentiates them? It's the service, it's not the device. But when you look at survival, things can't break, they have to operate flawlessly over and over and over. And most of the system is actually inside the endpoint itself. It just can't break. Another fun way to cut it is based on input. Comparing autonomous versus interactive input, what you find is that when it comes to user to the right-hand side, when it comes to interactive input, the user experience differentiates you. How you do it, how you press it, touch, swipe, feel, talk, autonomous based on how you're feeling. On the left-hand rail, when you get to self-directed and autonomous systems, the industrial systems, it's really the local interconnect that differentiates. Okay, the connection between that endpoint and that sensor and the gateway, or the connection between the gateway and the network. That is how those elements differentiate. The other thing you could do is what came out of this was brownfield versus greenfield. Greenfield is the sexy world of Fitbits and home automation, all the things we see typically on the consumer side. The washing machine that talks to you or you tweet from as you're doing your laundry. Very valuable, I know. Brownfield, while it doesn't seem as sexy, is actually the largest market, is all about retrofitting that 100-year-old boiler that has an analog sensor, making it digital, doing it for 5,000 of those boilers, and being able to determine what's the optimal temperature, knowing when things are going to break before they break, and essentially lowering your costs. The other element, which is relatively new, which I like to think of as big data, is on the monitoring side as well. We had a great presentation where you saw a bunch of fleet tracking. Doesn't sound sexy, but it's a lot of money, and it's called brownfield. Here's the other thing we can do. By the way, analysts are great. They can put up big numbers and, 5 or 6 years before it happens, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, just to fulfill that expectation here. These are very big and round numbers. The first thing I just want to say is that this is a really damn big market. It's a $10 trillion market that includes the products, it includes the services, and don't forget all of that big iron in the cloud to be able to do something with all of that data. And as you can see, the largest side is really the brownfield. Monitoring is the number one, and the reason why monitoring is just so big is because it's literally managing billions of devices that are essentially industrial, and that takes a lot of iron and a lot of retrofitting to get you there. The second largest segment is operational, and I think that's relatively straightforward. And you might be thinking, well, wait a second. I thought Fitbits and Google Glass and all that stuff is cool and it's huge. Well, it is huge. It's just not as huge as the brownfield markets. But the reason that they're lower is there are a lot of issues from penetration, which, by the way, I'll get to. Okay, last 2 slides here. These numbers are huge, but we have some serious issues here that I think has been discussed. A few of these have been hit on. The first thing is security. Think of the day that the electricity or the HVAC goes out in the hospital, okay, that's controlled somewhere. That is a life or death situation. Imagine somebody hacking into the systems that run the trains, the planes, and the automobiles, and the factories. It's a big, big deal. The second of all is lack of standards. What's happening right now is classic and high tech. First step is you have no standards and there's chaos, which we're at right now. The second is that big, huge companies get together and form consortiums, which is happening. And the second is that people get sick of the big companies running everything and it goes into a standard. Only when we get to that true open industry standards, which, by the way, could be a de facto standard coming out of the big guys, are we going to see this big boom here. The next is complexity. When you think of a system, particularly on the industrial side, think of taking that one sensor, multiply that by 1 million, which then have to get aggregated into multiple gateways, which then have to go to the to a network, and then to a data center, and everything needs to be tracked up and down every step of the way. Very, very hard to do that, and therefore the complexity of that, I believe, may give the upper hand to the large integrators, where there is truly one throat to choke. And finally, we talk about big data, but the problem is current IT is absolutely unprepared, including the scale-out data center guys in the public cloud. They are not prepared to, A, store it, but B, do something with it. And until they do that, they will not be able to take advantage of the Internet of Things. Okay. Human IoT, what are some of the barriers? First is simplicity. This is a great example. So, technology's most socially awkward device Google Glass, has a completely different way of interacting. You interact with voice, you interact with touching the side, and you even can interact it by moving your head up and down, and I can wink to take a picture. Okay? Google Glass is not going to be the only guy in town. So think of 10 other people. There's going to be 10 different ways to work with your face computer. Okay? And every one of my devices here has a different interface in what I do and the way that I use it. Home automation. Imagine having 10 different apps on your phone to do 10 different devices. That's just not going to work. The nerd effect. Okay, Google Glass is the perfect thing. First thing my wife said when she saw me, when I put these things on, she said to me, "Pat, this is great. Just one other thing to get in between you and I." Okay. My 10-year-old son, who likes cool stuff, he said, "Dad, that is the nerdiest thing I have ever seen in my life." So, again, we need to find ways to put this into clothing, into designer glasses, into designer watches. Battery life is a no-brainer. Galaxy Gear, the first version, lasted about a day. Okay, that is just completely, absolutely ridiculous. They need to last for months or weeks. And finally, lack of standards in home automation in particular. There is not one common standard to send one message to another device to make it do something else yet. Qualcomm actually has done a great job pulling those standards and bringing them into the open source market. If this, then that, right? If you get home, or if you're 15 minutes away from your house, set it to 75 degrees. When I get in the driveway, I want you to turn on the lights, and I want to put on some soft music because it's Friday. I wish you could have it make me a martini, but we're just not there yet. But those standards to send messages between each other or commands, they aren't there, and they need to be built. So with that, here you have your IoT segmentations and your key axes. Hopefully a segmentation model that you can use on your own and abuse in your own companies. It's actually on our website if you want to download this. We're going to be updating the paper today at that email address right down there. So with that, I want to thank you for being a wonderful crowd. Thank you very much.